safe as possible. And I hope you checked out my last video, the 5 videos banned from the public. It was kind of different. I was kind of feeling to switch up a bit, and I thank you so much for all the positive feedback that I have gotten. A lot of people said in my DMs that they wanted a part 2, so I will try and get that as fast as possible. Today's video, I had planned to do it, but then Dali Osmain, sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, but anyway, thank you so much for your comment. They wanted me to cover an Alaskan serial killer, so I thought I would. Asking if I could do it, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to. So thank you so much for commenting. I love when you guys request certain cases or certain topics. Please keep doing that. Honestly, it motivates me as well because I know somebody wants it to hear it. Do you get what I mean? So today's video is about the infamous Alaskan serial killer, Robert Hansen. There's a certain part of his killings that is just so disturbing. So I'm gonna spend my time describing the certain part. I don't want to ruin it. I hope you enjoy. Also, a few people have asked me in the comments and in my DMs if I'm doing a Q&A. I think I might do a Q&A when I hit like 200 subs. That gives me enough time to kind of prepare questions and stuff. Make sure you comment questions down below or DM me some questions, and I'll also probably closer to the time put a wee Instagram thing for people to ask questions. The most popular question as well is, why do I do these types of videos? Why true crime? So I will definitely answer that in the Q&A. Born on 15th of February 1939 in Estherville, Iowa, his father was an immigrant who owned a bakery. He was also very strict. Hansen's childhood was not an easy one. He worked long hours in the family bakery from a young age. As a teenager, he was painfully shy, had bad acne, and spoke with a stutter. This resulted in years of mockery. The boys at school made fun of him, and the girls he liked rejected him. He was often described as a loner. As a social outcast, he spent a lot of time alone, and over time became an avid game hunter, channeling his rage and fantasies of vengeance into the sport of stalking animals. In 1957, when he was 18 years old, Hansen joined the United States Army Reserve, hoping to leave behind the troubled person he had been in his youth and make something of himself. For a while, he did. After serving a year in the reserves, he became an assistant drill instructor in Pocahontas, Iowa, and even married a young woman he met there. But Hansen still felt mistreated by the community and sought retaliation. In 1960, at age 21, he convinced a young employee of the bakery to help him burn down a school bus garage. When the boy later confessed, Hansen was arrested. His wife divorced him, leaving him alone and incarcerated. He was released just 20 months into his 3-year sentence for arson. Then he was jailed a few more times afterward for petty theft. He still managed to remarry to another local woman. In 1967, he moved to Anchorage, Alaska, which was about as far from his life in Iowa as he could get. He moved into a small community, had 2 children with his wife, and settled into a quiet life. He was well liked and even opened up a small bakery. But while the townspeople bought into the facade of a happy baker with a quiet family and a knack for hunting, inside, Hansen was still the young man who had been endlessly mocked, repeatedly rejected by women, and was wrought with an insatiable thirst for revenge. In 1972, Hansen was arrested twice more, charged with the abduction and attempted rape of a housewife who escaped his clutches, and then the rape of a prostitute who did not. Serving less than 6 months on a reduced charge, he was picked up again for shoplifting a chainsaw in 1976. Convicted of larceny, he was sentenced to 5 years in prison, but the verdict was overturned on appeal. The Alaskan Supreme Court regarding his sentence as too harsh. Meanwhile, Alaska state troopers were convinced a serial killer was on the loose. Several sex workers and dancers had gone missing, and the troopers were beginning to find bodies. The first indication of a killer came in 1980, when construction workers unearthed a woman's remains near Eklutna Road. She was stabbed to death in 1979 and she was never identified. She's been dubbed Eklutna Annie by police assigned to the work case. Later that year, the corpse of Joanna Messina was found in the gravel pit near the South Fork of the Snowy River. Topless dancer Sherry Morrow had been dead for 10 months when hunters found her body in a shallow grave beside the Knik River. The only link so far was the .223 caliber shells found near the graves. So the authorities were no closer to a solution in their case. This led to the involvement of the FBI, including the now retired FBI agent John Douglas, who helped pioneer the field of criminal profiling. The story is also depicted in the Netflix series Mindhunter. In 1983, Hansen decided to save time and energy by bringing his victims home. He called it his summer project, laying the groundwork by packing his wife and 2 children off on a European vacation. Next, he began running ads in the local singles newspaper, seeking women to join me in finding what's around the next bend, over the next hill. In 1983, more than a decade after Hansen moved to Anchorage, a 17-year-old woman named Cindy Paulson was found running frantically down 6th Avenue, barefoot and handcuffed. After being picked up by a driver and returned safely, Paulson, a prostitute, told her story to police. She described being held hostage by a man who had handcuffed her to his car, held her at gunpoint and took her to his house, where he chained her by the neck. The man raped and tortured her repeatedly before attempting to load her onto a plane and take her to his cabin, Matanuska, Susitna Valley, about 35 miles north of Anchorage. As the man prepared the plane for takeoff, Paulson managed to escape. Hansen fit the description of the kidnapper perfectly. Paulson even described his stutter and identified his plane, but police still brought him in reluctantly. After all, though he may have been a quiet man, the local baker was well liked in the community. Hansen admitted that he had met the woman, but claimed she was setting him up because he had refused to pay her extortion demands. When he told police about his strong alibi, provided by a friend, he was released. Douglas put together a psychological profile of the killer based on the details of the case and the injuries inflicted on the recovered bodies. He theorized that the killer was an experienced hunter with low self-esteem and a history of being rejected by women, and that he likely had a stutter. Though he had been cleared several times before, there was no doubt about it. Hansen fit the profile almost exactly. What's more was he owned a bush plane and a cabin in the Matanuska-Susitna Valley. The police soon obtained a warrant to search Hansen's plane, car, and homes. What they found shocked them. The horror that Hansen's victims had endured was almost too horrifying to believe. In Anchorage, Hansen was a respected business owner known for his skill of bow hunting. The den in his home was decorated with hunting trophies and animals mounted to the walls, and he even set a few bow hunting records. But what no one knew is that for more than a decade, the hunter had also been collecting trophies from another kind of kill. Hansen mainly targeted sex workers and erotic dancers from around Anchorage. He would kidnap the women and either drive or fly his private bush plane out to his cabin in the remote Alaskan bush. If the women did not put up a fight, he would rape them and bring them back to town, threatening them into secrecy. But those who resisted or demanded for payment after sex suffered a truly nightmarish fate. Robert Hansen wasn't like normal serial killers who just killed their victims and got it over with. Hansen hunted his victims like prey. He would strip them naked and set the women free. For a moment, they thought they had hope and that there was a chance to escape. Then they would run for their lives. He would track them down, taking his time, hunting them like wild animals. He either injured them before or made the kill with his hunting knife or his favorite big game rifle, a .223 caliber Ruger Mini 14 rifle. He'd torture the woman with this chase for hours and sometimes days at a time, until he located his prey and shot them like a game. His favorite location was along the Knik River. X marks the spot. While searching Hansen's home, police found an aviation map of the area, hidden in the headboard of his bed. It was marked with tiny X's, denoting the kill and burial sites of his victims. Some of the X marks matched up with where the police had found bodies. There were 24 marks in total. What's more is in the profiling of the killer, Douglas had predicted the murderer would keep souvenirs from his prey. And sure enough, in Hansen's home, police found a stash of jewelry and ID cards. In the stash was a necklace that belonged to one of his victims. However, they still needed to find the murder weapon. Hours upon searching, they finally discovered a hidden space tucked away in the attic rafters. This is where the weapons were hidden away. On a flying tour of the wilderness, Hansen began pointing out graves to state troopers. They recovered 11 bodies over the next 8 months. Several victims remained anonymous. Their names were even unknown to Hansen. I'm going to list his victims. It will state their age if possible, if the body was found with his help, if he admitted, and if they could not be identified. Roxanne Eastland, Malai Larson, Lisa Fitrul, Andrea Altieri, Angela Federn, Teresa Watson, Tammy Pedersen, Sherry Morrow, Eklutna Annie, Joanna Messina, Horseshoe Harriet, Megan Emmerich, Cecilia Beth Van Zenten, Mary Thill, and Dylan Frey. In exchange for a reduced conviction, Hansen agreed to assist police in locating the remaining bodies plotted on his kill map. Unfortunately, 5 of the bodies have still not been found to this day. As a part of the plea bargain, the butcher baker was only ever charged with 4 of the 17 murders he confessed to. Some believed he actually killed more than 20 women. Even though he confessed to murdering 17 women and raping over another 30 women during this 12-year period, the cases he was charged with was Eklutna Annie, Joanna Messina, Sherry Morrow, and Paula Goulding. Charges were dismissed in the other cases. Hansen was sentenced to a 461-year plus life in prison without parole in 1984. He died in 2014.